Hey everyone, so this is Malene. She is my longtime friend from America, and she has just written her latest book called My Vagina Smells Amazing. Now, Malene, tell us about this one.
Oh, wow, this book. Well, I went through a period of needing to explore my sexuality a little bit. And so a few years back, my spouse and I decided to open our relationship. And this book is basically snippets of my explorations, but it also talks a lot about my past and my upbringing as a Black adoptee in a white home, where I describe the absence of, I would say, conversations about Black bodies and what they're supposed to be doing, what they're supposed to look like, and how one is supposed to feel as a Black woman or a Black male surrounded by whiteness, and kind of empowerment, lack of empowerment in that area because white adoptive parents didn't really understand how to empower their Black adoptees.
Mhm, mhm. And you're an advocate for adoptees around the world and such an amazing inspirational voice as well. You're a part of a group that is full of prospective and adoptive parents to educate them, and it's amazing. How will this book help adoptees and adoptive parents give them the tools, I suppose, or does it give them the tools?
That's a great question, Vin. The funny thing is, I didn't write this book for adoptees or adoptive parents. I wrote it out of the necessity to kind of feel out my experiences. Like I mentioned previously, I really wanted to write about what it felt like to kind of go into these relationships, waking myself up a little bit, trying to figure out if the reason I chose a female partner as opposed to a male partner, trying to figure out the reason, whether that was something having to do with previous abuse or whether that was something that was innately who I am. I do believe that one is born uh, gay, straight, bi. I do believe everyone's born fluid at its inception, and then we kind of just choose, pick and decide. As for people who are straight, they don't really have to come out as, oh, I'm straight, but people who are not straight or cisgendered need to come out. They feel like they don't fit a certain mold. So when I decided to write this, I definitely decided that I wanted to publish it. I just didn't know when that was going to happen. And or I didn't mention this, but I also really explore um, my pregnancy, the steps we took, and then I don't go into much detail about the actual result. By the way, an amazing, beautiful Blasian baby boy who is now 18 months and driving me completely crazy. Um, but my focus was on, am I attracted to women because the people who hurt me were not? So I wanted to really delve deeply into my experiences, what it looked like, and all encompassing how I'm supposed to be viewing my body and my vagina in particular, since that piece is what literally gives birth to humanity. I hope I answered that question.
Yeah, you did. That was a great answer. Such depth to that. Your previous book was The Perks of Being an Adoptee, and you sent me a copy, and that is phenomenal, and I love it. And so, can you maybe shed light on the difference between, because you just mentioned that in this one it's about talking about the whether it's the choosing the or not choosing the gender that hurt you. So, in the perks of being an adopter, you talk about white card, and you talk a lot about the differences of being or growing up as an adoptee, and being an adoptee, compared to this new one? Like, is there any similarities to it, or?
There are a lot of similarities. In fact, if you read The Perks of Being an Adoptee, you will see that there's a lot of overlapping stories that I bring into my vagina smells amazing. And the reason, because it's my story. So every book I write is going to have a little bit of overlap, because they're my story, they're my experiences, they're my truths. So with The Perks of Being an Adoptee, that was the last book I wrote, and it is more of a tongue to cheek piece of work where I'm kind of making fun of the adoption experience, because I had gotten to a point in my adoption where I'm looking at it at a different vantage point. I'm still anti-adoption unless it's 100% necessary, and I believe that most of the time it's not 100% necessary. But I'm looking at my experiences and kind of laughing at how insane they were, how crazy, how absurd, how ridiculous. And so when you read The Perks of Being an Adoptee, my hope is that you're laughing throughout the book as well. I know, Vin, you said that book really kind of opened your eyes to things like the white card and things that you really couldn't control, but also looking back and going like, holy crap, like that is actually a really funny experience. But in the moment, it wasn't funny. It was real. It was raw. It was painful. It was hurtful. But that all has to do with maturity. As you mature and you see things from different vantage points, you're able to kind of shed light. So if an adoptive parent were to read The Perks of Being an Adoptee, which I know a lot of adoptive parents have, their hope is not for their adoptee to one day become like me and laugh at their experience. The hope is that they're reading these and going, oh my gosh, maybe I shouldn't be doing these things, because then at some point my adoptee is going to laugh at me as well. Yeah. So it's kind of a stop sign to, this is what happened, this is the particular story, this is the experience. Oh, have we done XYZ, and how can we fix that situation? How can we mend that relationship? Tongue in cheek, a lot of sarcasm, just a point in my life where I just looked at adoption as kind of a humorous take on other people raising other people's children. And then if you look at the overlap, you're looking at My Vagina Smells Amazing, and that specifically includes stories from The Perks of Being an Adoptee and stories from Rainbows But Not Unicorns. You remember that yes. book as well. That's one of the first books I wrote. And that's a guide. That truly is a guide for adoptive parents. And again, there's so much overlap with all the writings. But for My Vagina Smells Amazing, it really focuses on women empowerment, Black women, women of color empowerment, and what we can experience and what we can learn and what we can share about who we are as people, and debunking all of the stereotypes that are out there, debunking these theories that women are supposed to save themselves for that one person, just debunking, just enjoying who we are as people, enjoying our bodies, but also kind of understanding our bodies. Now, don't go too much into detail medical stuff about vaginas, etc. It's more of a, this is what I'd like to do, this is what I'd like to experience, and I'm also going to write about it.
Okay, so one of the best things I love is you released a quote from the book, and I just want to read this quote because I think it's phenomenal. It was all over. He, in brackets, and all of those who sexualized me at a young age, close brackets, had literally opened up Pandora's box, and that box could never be closed again. I had entered into a world of masturbation, super slow AOL, dial-up porn, and celibacy. I love that quote. That quote is amazing. What is your favorite part of the book?
My favorite part, well, let me talk real quick about the quote. So that quote actually, it's actually what happened. Living in a developing country, that's when AOL was just happening, internet was just becoming cool, and the dial-up was insanely slow. And I remember I had this boyfriend, right, who was okay, he was my boo, but he was white. And he and he I had never met him. I was 13. I had never met him in my entire life, but we dated, quote unquote, for like 2 years.
Oh wow.
And he never sent me pictures of his body or anything. I'm not gonna lie, he probably was a freak, a 50-year-old freak, you know, hitting on a 13-year-old girl, whatever. My parents were not worried about that at that point in time because they didn't even know how to turn on the computer, okay? But I can remember staying up till 1 or 2 in the morning, and due to the fact that I had been molested as a child, it brings out a sexual interest in you that's different, that's confusing. So I started dabbling in the porn, but because dial-up was so slow, I literally could go fry an egg, eat the egg, and by the time I came back to the computer, the whole body would be there. So I'd get like this picture, and it was all men. So I'd get this picture of this male body part, etc. And I was just curious. So that Pandora's box, once someone is sexually abused, there's components of sexual abuse that as it's happening, sometimes it feels good. It's a natural response. It's a natural body response. And that's where the shame comes in. It's like, how dare I enjoy, quote unquote, this thing that someone's doing to me without consent? So complete abuse, but it's part of our natural body response. This is why a lot of times people don't report sexual abuse, because the questions come up with, well, why didn't you scream? Why didn't you say no? Why didn't you kick? Why didn't a million questions, which by the way is also in this book. But because Pandora's box had been opened, once that box is open, and that's figuratively speaking and literally speaking, there really is no turning back. And so that shame comes in, frustration, but also the desire to know more. I want more and more and more. So masturbation became something that I was addicted to. And then, like I said, we had this old timer computer. It's like IBM. And as I was downloading, you could hear that. And then, of course, nobody could call me on the phone, right? Yeah. Because that line was used. Like when we discovered 2 Lives, we were like, oh my God, I can be on internet and talk to my friend on the phone at the same time. So I actually did that. I talked to this guy from Canada on the phone and being on the internet at the same time after a couple years. But at the beginning, at the internet's inception, you heard the dial-up and that picture coming down slowly. First I'd get those pubic hairs and be like, ooh, no. And keep going and kept going. And finally, after I ate my fried egg with ketchup, I was like, there it is. So there was no turning back. That was it. There was no turning back, which became problematic for me in the future because I just became so addicted to the sexual component of this quote unquote discovery. And it was part of me finding myself. Again, one of the main reasons I'm writing this book is that I'm really trying to find myself sexually. I did write a book back in the day called What Part of Me Is Saved? And that talks a lot about, I'm not sure if I talked to you about that book. I think I may have, but that book is about this thick. So I would say about 120 pages. And that book talks mainly about my trip to Spain with my adoptive family. And
yes, we have spoken about this.
Yeah. And I thought that was it was a really good piece because it was just one of those journals. Most of my books are journals. Mm-hmm. Most of anything you've read from me, they're journals that I've been keeping for months at a time, years at a time. And I put them together. I'm just like, you know what? I have this writing. I don't want it to get lost. Even if it's in my Google Doc, nobody can get into my account. I don't even know my password half the time. That's why I have it saved, because I'm like, I don't even know it. So I want that stuff out there. So to answer the question about the quote, my favorite part of that quote is just the fact that it's just poignant and it's there and people can read it and people can double take and say, did I just read that? And then they'll read it again and be like, whoa, she did say masturbation. And then read it again and then be like, wait a second, I've been there.
Mm-hmm. one of the best things about about you is you have many wonderful things about you. One of my favorite things about you is that everything you talk about is the taboo topics, and that's what I love, because you smash that shit right out of the park and you talk about it. And you and I, this is one thing that you and I have always spoke about since the very beginning of our friendship, is that you just got to talk about it and get it out and smash it, because if you keep it closed and behind the closed doors, then it stays a secret. And you and I went through a period where that's what we spoke about a lot, because there was a lot of shame in what
Yeah.
I've been through when you were helping me deal with my stuff. And then and we kind of help each other in a way. And your insights changed my entire life and my outlook on life and my understanding of life. And your book is going to do that. And I'm sure The Perks of an Adoptee and the other book has done that and helped so many people.
I'm hoping. I mean, I don't do any publication. I publish obviously, but I don't do any advertising is the word I'm looking for. And it's because it costs money. So I love the fact that we're talking about it. I put that stuff out there. I think with all the little links and words that you can put in for search, people will eventually find it. But what I would really like to do at some point is, get some of this stuff to Oprah Winfrey or even Ellen DeGeneres, even though her show's not still going on, but just to get it out there, because I really do feel that I have something to say. We all have something to say. And I know that when I read books from authors that touch me, I actually go into their webpage and see what else they've written. But people people are relational. We're supposed to create relationships, whether it's sexual, physical, completely just friendship, platonic, whatever the case is. We're supposed to be relational people. So when we read each other's work or we share each other's thoughts, we're connecting on a level that I believe animals don't. We get to make that connection. I did want to read to you a part that I thought was actually quite funny, and this book is actually funny as well. So I think you will find it humorous, but also serious, but also super sad, and just kind of like straight in your face. Now I use a structure that's slightly different in this book, where I'll sometimes indent to the left, to the right, or I'll indent to the left, or I'll just make sure it's right centered, because I'm trying to make certain points in my writing. And I think you noticed that with The Perks of Being an Adoptee, where sometimes I put words down the line, just straight down, and not full sentences, because I'm trying to capture how we actually speak as people. We don't actually speak in full paragraphs and proper grammar, etc., whatever proper grammar looks like, colonial. We don't actually speak in that format. So I'm trying to capture how we speak. So this is day one, June 12th, 2019. This is actually the first actual quote unquote chapter in the book. It's a little lengthy, so bear with me, but I will read it to you. And I think the listeners this will definitely be a draw in. So day one, June 12th, 2019. This morning, I awoke to light cramps. The kind of cramps that usually reminds a woman that she did not get pregnant. I was a bit disappointed that I was not pregnant. As an adoptee, carrying someone who is a part of you and belongs to your DNA is important for me. Not every adoptee feels this way, but I know for myself, the urge seems to get stronger and stronger as I age. This is around the time that I was trying to get pregnant. I laid in bed, just waiting for 8:30 a.m. to hit, and then, and only then, would I wake up, wash my face, take a pee, and then dress the dog in her harness, which my wife calls her clothes, and take her to use the outside toilet. Dogs have it so easy, don't they? All they do is lie there, wait to be pet, to be fed, to be watered, to be loved on, and to be let out to use the bathroom 3 to 4 times each day. And in return, they love you unconditionally. Dogs don't have moods per se. They don't really have restrictions. They have an abundance of love that they wait all day, every second of the day, just to share with you. And I know you have a dog and you can relate to this. As I got up, I stretched my arms, farted a bit, and moved to the door. My wife had put the dog inside the room because her exit this morning was earlier than usual. She was taking one of our cars in for a tune-up, and that appointment was at Satan's hour, 7 a.m. In order to not confuse the dog, she put her in the room where she remained with me and my fart. So,
I love it.
I mean, isn't that what we do in the morning? Stretch, fart a bit, move on with life. Like, I just put everything that I just put me in there. And I think that's what kind of separates me a lot from other adoptees is that I don't care. Like, I'm just me, you
A
know?
lot
I'm
of
just,
authors as well. It separates you from a lot of other authors as well. It's so authentic and it's so. I could be a little bit biased because I do know you're.
true. But yeah, I just wanted to read that to you because it's just kind of what you're going to read in the book. You're going to read these weird scenarios. You're going to read about blood and guts and vaginal juice and all these things that you're probably like, "Oh my gosh, okay, but people do experience this and this is so raw and real."
Yeah, yeah. I love it. I love it. I love how raw and real it is.